On the brink of being put down, a fragile puppy fought for survival in a crowded shelter, abandoned and forgotten. But Luna, the golden retriever mother, refused to give up. Her love and determination gave the tiny life a chance when there seemed to be none. This is not just a story of survival, but a powerful reminder of a mother's unbreakable bond and the miracle of second chances. Get ready for a journey that will touch your heart and restore your faith in love and hope. Welcome to this exciting story. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more amazing adventures. And hey, let me know in the comments, which country are you watching from? I'd love to hear from you. Rain pounded against the warehouse windows that night. Most people would have missed it, the faint whimper coming from behind those rusted metal doors. But Mike Thompson wasn't most people. After 15 years as a security guard in downtown Portland, he'd learned to trust his instincts. "Something's not right," he muttered, pointing his flashlight toward the abandoned building. The beam cut through sheets of rain, illuminating graffiti-covered walls and broken windows. But it was that sound, that desperate, barely there cry, that made him break protocol and call for backup before investigating. He'd seen plenty in his years patrolling these streets. Drug deals gone wrong, teenage vandals, even the occasional homeless person seeking shelter. But nothing prepared him for what he found behind those doors. The flashlight beam caught something golden in its path. At first, Mike thought it was just reflected light off a puddle. But then he saw it move. There, in the furthest corner of the warehouse, lay a golden retriever. Her fur was matted with blood and dirt, and fresh cuts crisscrossed her body. But it wasn't her injuries that stopped Mike in his tracks. It was what she was doing. Despite her obvious pain, the dog had positioned herself like a protective wall around something small and precious. A tiny puppy, no more than a few weeks old, nursed weakly at her side. The mother's eyes met Mike's, and in them, he saw not fear or aggression, but a desperate plea. "It's okay, girl," Mike whispered, keeping his voice low and steady. "I'm not here to hurt you." He'd dealt with injured animals before, knew how unpredictable they could be. But this one was different. She watched him with an intelligence that seemed almost human. As he inched closer, his radio crackled to life. "Thompson, what's your status?" "Animal control is 10 minutes out." The mother dog's ears perked up at the sound, but she didn't move from her protective position. If anything, she seemed to pull her puppy closer. "I've got an injured golden retriever and a puppy," Mike reported back. "They're in bad shape. Tell them to hurry." Those next 10 minutes would haunt Mike for years to come. The mother's breathing was labored, and he could see now that her injuries weren't random. These were deliberate cuts, some old, some fresh. Someone had done this to her, and recently. The puppy wasn't much better off. While it didn't have the same injuries as its mother, it was clearly malnourished. Its golden fur, so much like its mother's, was dull and patchy. But what struck Mike most was how, even in their desperate condition, the mother never stopped trying to clean her puppy, never stopped attempting to nurse. Her own pain seemed secondary to keeping her baby alive. When animal control arrived, led by Sarah Chun, a veteran officer with 20 years of experience, even she paused at the sight. "In all my years," Sarah breathed, "I've never seen anything quite like this." She knelt down slowly, medical kit in hand. The fact that she's still producing milk in this condition. The mother dog, whom Sarah would later name Luna, watched them with those intelligent eyes as they approached. She didn't growl or snap, even when Sarah began examining her wounds. It was as if she knew they were there to help. This wasn't a random act of cruelty, Sarah noted, documenting each injury with her camera. These cuts are systematic. Someone knew what they were doing. She paused, checking Luna's neck for any sign of a collar or microchip. Nothing. The puppy, meanwhile, had finally stopped nursing and was watching the proceedings with curious eyes. Despite everything, its tail gave a tiny wag when Sarah reached out to check its condition. "Male, about 3 weeks old," Sarah reported, her voice tight with emotion. "Severely undernourished but no visible injuries." She looked at Mike. "If you hadn't found them tonight..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew that between Luna's injuries and the dropping temperatures, neither mother nor pup would have survived another night in the warehouse. As they prepared to transport the dogs to the emergency veterinary hospital, Mike noticed something else, something that made this already mysterious situation even stranger. Near where Luna had been lying was a torn piece of paper. On it, in neat handwriting, was a single word. "Sorry. We need to document everything," Sarah said, carefully bagging the note. "This isn't just an animal cruelty case anymore. Something bigger is going on here." They didn't know it then, but that rainy night in Portland would set in motion a chain of events that would uncover one of the largest animal trafficking operations on the West Coast. But more importantly, it would reveal a story of love, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child that would touch millions of hearts around the world. The emergency response team worked quickly, carefully loading Luna and her puppy into the transport vehicle. Throughout it all, Luna's eyes never left her baby, even as the pain medications began to take effect. "Stay with me, girl," Sarah whispered as they raced through the rain-slicked streets toward the emergency vet clinic. "Your story isn't over yet. It's just beginning." The emergency veterinary clinic's doors burst open as Sarah Chun rushed in with Luna and her puppy. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Luna's injured body, making the severity of her condition even more apparent than it had been in the warehouse. "Dr. Martinez," Sarah called out, her voice echoing through the clinic's quiet halls. "We need you now." Dr. Elena Martinez was already moving before Sarah finished speaking. In her 20 years of emergency veterinary medicine, she developed an instinct for critical cases. One look at Luna told her this was one of the worst she'd seen. "Get them into treatment room 1, she ordered, her team springing into action around her. "What's their status?" Sarah kept pace as they rushed down the hallway. "Mother golden retriever, multiple lacerations, possible internal injuries. Puppy approximately 3 weeks old, severely undernourished. Found in an abandoned warehouse about 30 minutes ago." Luna remained eerily calm as they transferred her to the examination table, her eyes fixed on her puppy. Even in her weakened state, she tried to lift her head when they took the little one to be examined separately. "It's okay, Luna," Dr. Martinez soothed, noting how the dog responded to gentle words despite her obvious distress. "We're going to take care of both of you." The next few hours became a desperate race against time. As Dr. Martinez worked, the true extent of Luna's injuries became clear. The cuts were just the surface. Beneath her matted fur lay a story of prolonged abuse that made even the veteran vet pause. "These wounds," she murmured, carefully cleaning each laceration. "They're methodical. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Some of these are weeks old, others just hours. But it was what they found during the X-rays that changed everything. Look at this." Dr. Martinez pointed to the screen, showing Sarah the images. "She's had at least 2 previous litters. And these healed fractures, they're consistent with—" She stopped, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. "Consistent with what?" Sarah pressed. "Breeding dogs used in fighting rings. They break their bones young, let them heal wrong. Makes them easier to control." Dr. Martinez's voice was tight with controlled anger. "But Luna's different. These injuries are recent. Someone was trying to break her, but they didn't succeed." Meanwhile, in the adjacent room, Dr. Kim was examining the puppy, whom they'd started calling Scout. Despite his malnourishment, he showed remarkable spirit, attempting to play with the stethoscope as the vet checked his heart. "It's a miracle," Dr. Kim reported, entering Luna's treatment room. "Given the mother's condition, this puppy should not be as healthy as he is. She must have been giving him every drop of nutrition she could produce, at the expense of her own recovery." The night stretched on. Luna needed surgery to repair internal bleeding they discovered, a procedure made riskier by her weakened condition. Through it all, they kept Scout nearby. His presence seemed to give Luna strength, even in her sedated state. Mike Thompson, who had followed them to the clinic after his shift ended, paced the waiting room. He couldn't explain why, but something about these dogs had gotten under his skin. Maybe it was the way Luna had looked at him in the warehouse, or maybe it was the mystery of that single word, "sorry." found at the scene. As dawn broke, Dr. Martinez emerged from surgery, exhaustion evident in her movements but a slight smile on her face. "She's stable," she announced. "We've repaired the internal bleeding and treated the worst of the infections. The next 24 hours will be critical, but she's fighting. I've never seen a dog with such determination to live." Sarah, who had stayed through the night documenting evidence, nodded. "You don't know how right you are. Look at this." She pulled up photos on her tablet. "We found scarring consistent with shock collars, but also something else. A partially removed tattoo in her ear. Someone tried to erase her history. The implications were clear. Luna wasn't just a victim of random cruelty. She was evidence. Evidence of something bigger, something organized. The kind of operation that would go to great lengths to eliminate any traces of their activities. As if to confirm their suspicions, Dr. Martinez's next discovery would shake them all. During the surgery, they'd found something embedded under Luna's skin. A tiny memory card, carefully sealed in a waterproof casing. "This was deliberately placed," Dr. Martinez said, holding up the small plastic bag containing their discovery. "Someone wanted this information found, but only if something happened to Luna." Sarah immediately called her contacts at the police department. This had just become much more than an animal cruelty case. In recovery, Luna began to stir. Despite the pain medication, her first response was to look for Scout. When they brought him to her, she managed to lift her head just enough to nuzzle him, checking him over as any mother would. "There's something special about these two," Mike said, watching through the recovery room window. "Something that goes beyond normal animal instinct." Dr. Martinez nodded. "Luna's not just fighting for herself. Every decision she's made, from protecting Scout in that warehouse to how she's responding to treatment, it's all been about keeping him safe. It's as if she knows something we don't." They had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. As Luna and Scout settled into their first peaceful sleep in what must have been weeks, the memory card found during surgery was already making its way to the police cybercrime unit. Its contents would soon expose a network of corruption and cruelty that stretched from Portland to the Canadian border. But for now, in the quiet of the recovery room, mother and pup slept soundly, their first step toward healing completed. Luna's body was wrapped in bandages, for lines providing crucial fluids and antibiotics, but her face showed a peace that hadn't been there before. Scout, curled up in his special bed next to her, kept one paw stretched out to touch his mother's fur. Detective James Rodriguez sat in the cybercrime unit's dimly lit office, staring at his computer screen. The memory card found inside Luna had opened a Pandora's box of information that made his stomach turn. 20 years on the force hadn't prepared him for this. "You need to see this," he called to his partner, Detective Maya Chan, Sarah's sister. "These aren't just records of animal fighting rings. They're shipping manifests, bank accounts, names." Someone on the inside was collecting evidence. Maya leaned over his shoulder, her eyes scanning the documents. "Look at the dates. These records go back 3 years. Luna wasn't just a victim, she was a carrier. Someone chose her specifically to transport this information. The pieces were starting to come together. Luna's systematic injuries, the careful placement of the memory card, the apologetic note left at the warehouse. It all pointed to someone inside the organization trying to expose it from within. Across town, at the Pacific Northwest Animal Care Center, Luna and Scout were making remarkable progress. 2 days had passed since their rescue, and Luna's strength was returning, surprising even Dr. Martinez with her recovery rate. "Her blood work is showing significant improvement," Dr. Martinez explained to Sarah during her morning check-in. "But there's something else you should see." She pulled up Luna's latest x-rays. "These healed fractures we found? They're not consistent with fighting dogs. The break patterns suggest she was a show dog, probably from a prestigious breeding line." Sarah's eyes widened. "A show dog? That would explain her temperament. But how does a champion golden retriever end up in the middle of an animal trafficking operation?" The answer would come from an unexpected source. Detective Rodriguez's team had managed to decrypt more files from the memory card, revealing photographs of dog shows from across the country. In one of them, a younger, Pristine Luna stood proudly in a show ring, a blue ribbon at her neck. Her registered name was Golden Sunrise's Hope Eternal, Maya reported, spreading the photos across the conference room table. She won Best in Show at 3 major competitions before disappearing 2 years ago. Her owner reported her stolen, but the case went cold. The investigation expanded rapidly. The files on the memory card implicated several well-known figures in the dog show circuit, revealing a dark network that used the legitimate face of show competitions to mask trafficking operations. Back at the Animal Care Center, Luna's behavior was providing its own clues. Dr. Martinez noticed how she responded to certain commands in multiple languages: English, German, and French, suggesting extensive professional training. Whoever placed that memory card inside her knew exactly what they were doing, Detective Rodriguez concluded. They chose a dog with show training because they knew she'd be intelligent enough to seek help when the time came, but also valuable enough that the organization would keep her alive despite any suspicions. The breakthrough came when they identified Luna's original owner, Elizabeth Montgomery, a respected dog trainer who had vanished shortly after reporting Luna's theft. The files suggested she hadn't disappeared at all. She'd gone undercover, working to expose the trafficking ring from within. The note we found, Mike Thompson realized during one of his visits to check on Luna. It wasn't just an apology. It was a signal. Elizabeth must have reached a point where she couldn't maintain her cover anymore. She led Luna to that warehouse, knowing someone would find her. As Luna's physical wounds healed, her role in the investigation became clearer. The trafficking ring had been using champion show dogs as breeding stock, creating puppies that could be sold for enormous sums on the black market. But they'd made a crucial mistake with Luna. They'd underestimated the bond between a mother and her pup. Scout, now growing stronger each day, displayed the same intelligent temperament as his mother. DNA tests confirmed what they'd suspected. He came from champion bloodlines on both sides, making him incredibly valuable to the traffickers. They would have separated them as soon as Scout was weaned, Sarah explained to the investigation team. That's why Luna ran. She'd seen it happen with her previous litters, but this time she fought back. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Detective Rodriguez received an encrypted email. The sender, using elaborate security measures, provided coordinates to a storage facility outside Portland. Inside, they found Elizabeth Montgomery's personal records, detailed documentation of the trafficking operation, including names of corrupt judges, veterinarians, and show officials. Elizabeth herself remained missing, but her meticulous work had given law enforcement everything they needed. The files she'd gathered, combined with the data from Luna's memory card, provided a comprehensive map of the organization's structure. Luna's story caught the attention of national media. As details of the investigation emerged, the dog show community was rocked by arrests and revelations. Champions were revealed to be victims, prestigious kennels exposed as fronts for criminal operations. At the Animal Care Center, Luna continued to surpass expectations. Her protective instincts toward Scout never wavered, but she now extended that same gentle care to other rescued animals brought to the facility. It was as if she understood her role in their salvation. She's not just a survivor, Dr. Martinez observed, watching Luna comfort a newly rescued puppy. She's a symbol of everything we're fighting for. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Pacific Northwest Animal Care Center as Dr. Martinez reviewed Luna's latest test results. 6 weeks had passed since that rainy night rescue, and the changes in both mother and pup were remarkable. I've never seen anything like this recovery, she told Sarah, who had stopped by for her daily visit. It's not just the physical healing. Look at this. Through the observation window, they watched as Luna worked with a traumatized German shepherd that had arrived the previous night. The new dog had snapped at everyone who approached, but Luna, with Scout following close behind, had somehow gotten through to him. She seems to know exactly what each dog needs, Sarah observed, whether it's space, comfort, or just a gentle nudge to trust again. But that morning would bring a revelation that would change everything they thought they knew about Luna's story. Detective Rodriguez burst into the center, clutching a file folder, his face flushed with excitement. "We found her," he announced. "Elizabeth Montgomery. She's alive." The news sent shockwaves through the team. Elizabeth had been found in a small town in British Columbia, living under an assumed name. She had managed to escape the trafficking ring but had been forced to maintain her cover until the organization's key players were arrested. "I had to leave Luna," Elizabeth explained during a secure video call with the investigation team. "It was the hardest decision of my life, but it was the only way to ensure all the evidence would be found." She revealed that Luna had been more than just a carrier of evidence. She had been her partner in the investigation from the beginning. The champion show dog's intelligence and training had made her perfect for the role. "Luna was never just a victim," Elizabeth continued, her voice breaking slightly. "She was a volunteer. From the day they stole her, she understood we were working to save others. That's why she cooperated with their breeding program, to stay alive and gather evidence." The revelation cast Luna's actions in an entirely new light. Her careful protection of Scout, her strategic escape to a location where she would be found, even her current work helping other rescued dogs. It was all part of a deeper understanding than anyone had imagined. Scout, now 12 weeks old, had grown into a sturdy, confident puppy. His golden coat gleamed with health, and his eyes held the same intelligent spark as his mother's. DNA tests had confirmed something else extraordinary. His father had been another champion show dog, one who had disappeared under similar circumstances. The trafficking ring didn't just steal dogs, Elizabeth explained. They specifically targeted ones with high intelligence and exceptional training. They thought they could exploit these qualities, but instead, it became their undoing. As Elizabeth shared more details, the full scope of Luna's role emerged. The champion golden retriever had been carefully documenting everything through her trained responses and behaviors. Elizabeth had taught her specific signals to indicate when important transactions were happening or when new dogs were brought in. She memorized faces, locations, routines, Elizabeth said. "Everything I couldn't safely record," Luna remembered. "That's why they could never figure out how I was gathering so much information." The bond between Luna and Scout took on new meaning as well. This wasn't just any litter. Scout had been deliberately conceived as part of the plan. Elizabeth had known her time undercover was running out and needed to ensure Luna would have a compelling reason to seek help at exactly the right moment. A mother protecting her puppy wouldn't raise suspicion, Elizabeth explained. It gave Luna the perfect cover to escape when we needed her to. What I didn't anticipate was how deeply she would bond with Scout, how she would go beyond the training to become the kind of mother she is. Dr. Martinez, listening to Elizabeth's explanation, suddenly understood Luna's exceptional healing process. She wasn't just recovering, she realized. She was continuing her mission. Every interaction with other rescued dogs, every response to treatment. She's been showing us exactly what we need to know about rehabilitation. The care center began implementing new protocols based on Luna's methods. They observed how she approached traumatized animals, how she used body language to communicate safety and trust, how she knew when to push and when to back off. Scout, it turned out, had inherited more than just his mother's intelligence. He displayed an uncanny ability to sense when other animals were in distress, often alerting the staff before visible signs appeared. Together, mother and pup were revolutionizing how the center approached animal rehabilitation. Elizabeth's emergence from hiding brought another surprise. She had maintained detailed records of every dog that had passed through the trafficking ring, including DNA samples whenever possible. This information would prove crucial in reuniting stolen pets with their original families and prosecuting those responsible. But Luna and Scout, Elizabeth said, her voice firm, they found their true purpose. The work they're doing at the center. It's more important than any show ring victory. The media attention intensified as Elizabeth's role became public. The story of a champion show dog turned undercover operative, working with her trainer to expose corruption, captured imaginations worldwide. But it was Luna's continued dedication to helping other animals that truly inspired people. Rescue centers across the country began requesting Luna's training protocols. The way she worked with Scout to rehabilitate other dogs became a model for mother-pup therapy teams. What had started as a desperate fight for survival had evolved into a revolutionary approach to animal healing. Detective Rodriguez, watching Luna work with a newly rescued puppy mill survivor, shook his head in amazement. "We thought we were solving a crime," he said. "Instead, we were witnessing the beginning of something much bigger." Sarah, who had documented every step of Luna and Scout's journey, began compiling their methods into a formal training program. "It's not just about physical recovery," she explained to a group of visiting veterinarians. "Luna has shown us that emotional healing follows its own path, and sometimes the best teachers are the ones who've walked that path themselves." The investigation was drawing to a close, with most of the trafficking ring's leaders in custody. Elizabeth would soon be able to testify in open court, bringing final justice to the dogs who had suffered. But Luna and Scout's story was still unfolding. Each day brought new challenges and breakthroughs at the center. Luna seemed to instinctively know which cases needed her attention most, while Scout's playful energy helped coax traumatized dogs out of their shells. Together, they were rewriting everything experts thought they knew about animal rehabilitation. "They're not just survivors anymore," Dr. Martinez told a documentary crew filming at the center. "They're healers. And they're teaching us that sometimes the deepest wounds can become the greatest sources of strength." As the sun set on another day at the center, Luna and Scout curled up together in their favorite spot by the window. Their journey from that rainy night in the warehouse had taken them places no one could have predicted. But watching them now, peaceful and purposeful, it was clear they had found exactly where they were meant to be. The federal courthouse in Portland had never seen anything quite like this. As Elizabeth Montgomery took the stand, Luna and Scout sat calmly in the gallery, their presence a powerful testament to the case being presented. The prosecution had fought hard for their inclusion, arguing that the jury needed to see the living proof of both the cruelty and the triumph at the heart of this case. "Please state your name for the record," the prosecutor began. Elizabeth Montgomery, former professional dog trainer and undercover investigator. The courtroom fell silent as Elizabeth began her testimony. For the first time, the full story of her 3-year infiltration of the trafficking ring emerged in public. She described how she had first noticed irregularities at dog shows, champions disappearing, bloodlines being manipulated, judges accepting bribes. "But it was Luna who made it all possible," Elizabeth testified, her voice steady. "Without her intelligence and training, we never could have gathered enough evidence. She memorized routines, recognized faces, learned to signal when something important was happening." In the gallery, Luna's ears perked up at the sound of her former trainer's voice. Scout, now 5 months old, sat attentively beside his mother, his presence a reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. The prosecution presented their evidence methodically. Financial records showed millions of dollars flowing through shell companies. Veterinary records revealed the systematic abuse of hundreds of dogs. DNA tests confirmed the manipulation of bloodlines to create puppies that could be sold at premium prices. But it was the video evidence that stunned the courtroom into silence. Security camera footage, carefully collected over years, showed the inner workings of the operation. Dogs being transferred in the dead of night, falsified papers being exchanged, money changing hands in parking lots after shows. The defendants didn't just steal dogs, the prosecutor explained. They stole champions, mothers, beloved pets. They turned these animals into commodities and destroyed families in the process. During breaks in the testimony, Dr. Martinez provided updates on the continuing impact of Luna and Scout's work at the care center. Their rehabilitation program had now helped over 100 traumatized dogs recover. Centers across the country were adopting their methods, with remarkable results. "What Luna and Scout have shown us," Dr. Martinez testified, "is that trauma recovery isn't just about physical healing. It's about rebuilding trust, restoring dignity, and finding purpose. They've revolutionized how we approach animal rehabilitation." The defense attorneys tried to discredit Elizabeth's testimony, suggesting she had fabricated evidence to bring down legitimate breeders. But they couldn't explain away the memory card found in Luna, or the DNA evidence linking stolen dogs to their original owners, or the financial records showing millions in illegal transactions. On the 4th day of the trial, the prosecution called an unexpected witness, Mike Thompson, the security guard who had found Luna and Scout that rainy night. "I've been working security for 15 years, he testified. "I've seen all kinds of situations. But there was something different about Luna. She wasn't just hiding. She was waiting to be found. She led us to the evidence we needed. The defense's case began to unravel as more witnesses came forward. Former show judges admitted to accepting bribes. Veterinarians confessed to falsifying records. Transport companies acknowledged their role in moving stolen dogs across state lines. Throughout the proceedings, Luna remained a calm presence in the courtroom, her intelligent eyes following each witness. Scout, growing more confident each day, seemed to understand the importance of their role. Together, they represented both the tragedy of what had happened and the hope for what could be changed. Sarah Chun, who had documented Luna and Scout's journey from the beginning, presented a comprehensive report on the lasting impact of their case. Animal welfare laws were being strengthened across multiple states. Show dog organizations were implementing stricter oversight. Rescue centers were developing new protocols based on Luna's rehabilitation methods. This case isn't just about punishing criminals, Sarah testified. It's about changing how we protect vulnerable animals. Luna and Scout haven't just survived. They've shown us a better way forward. The prosecution's final witness was a DNA expert who had traced the lineage of over 50 puppies born to stolen show dogs. The evidence revealed how the trafficking ring had exploited champion bloodlines, creating a hidden market for designer puppies, while their mothers suffered in horrific conditions. But Luna broke the cycle, the expert explained. By escaping with Scout, she not only saved herself and her puppy, she exposed the entire operation. The DNA evidence she helped us gather has allowed us to identify and locate dozens of stolen dogs. As the trial entered its final days, the impact reached beyond the courtroom. Animal welfare organizations reported increased support and donations. Show dog registries announced new security measures. Training centers began incorporating emotional rehabilitation into their programs. The jury took less than 6 hours to reach their verdict. Guilty on all counts. The leaders of the trafficking ring faced decades in prison, along with millions in fines and restitution payments to the families of stolen dogs. But the most significant victory came in the form of new legislation. Luna's Law, as it became known, established stricter penalties for animal trafficking and mandated comprehensive tracking systems for show dogs. It also provided funding for rehabilitation programs based on the methods developed through Luna and Scout's work. Elizabeth Montgomery, finally able to step out of hiding, established a foundation dedicated to protecting show dogs and supporting animal rehabilitation. Luna and Scout became its ambassadors, their story inspiring others to join the fight against animal trafficking. What these dogs have shown us, Elizabeth told reporters after the verdict, is that justice isn't just about punishment. It's about healing, about turning tragedy into transformation. Luna and Scout didn't just help us catch criminals. They showed us how to build something better from the wreckage. The Care Center, now recognized as a leading facility for animal rehabilitation, continued to evolve its programs based on Luna and Scout's methods. Other centers sent their staff for training, creating a network of facilities equipped to handle complex trauma cases. Dr. Martinez, reviewing their progress, noted how the Mother Pup team had fundamentally changed their approach to healing. They've taught us that recovery isn't linear, she explained. It's about building connections, finding strength in vulnerability, and creating safe spaces for transformation. As the media frenzy around the trial subsided, Luna and Scout's daily work continued. Each new rescued animal that came through the center's doors found not just medical care, but a path to emotional recovery guided by 2 remarkable dogs who had transformed their own trauma into a force for healing. The verdict marked not an ending, but a beginning. Luna's Law would protect countless animals in the years to come, while the rehabilitation methods she and Scout pioneered would continue to evolve and spread. Their legacy would live on in every rescued animal that found its way back to trust, every broken spirit that learned to hope again. In the quiet moments after the trial, as Luna and Scout played in the center's yard, their joy was a testament to the resilience they had helped others discover. They had not just survived, they had shown others how to thrive. A year had passed since the landmark trial that brought down one of the largest animal trafficking rings in North America. The Pacific Northwest Animal Care Center, once a standard emergency facility, had transformed into a renowned rehabilitation center, and at its heart were two extraordinary golden retrievers. Luna, now fully recovered from her injuries, moved through the center's halls with quiet confidence. The scars that marked her body had faded, but her eyes still held that remarkable intelligence that had helped bring justice to so many. Scout, nearly grown, had developed into a stunning young dog who carried his mother's gift for healing. "It's amazing to think how far we've come," Dr. Martinez said, watching Luna guide a newly rescued dog through its first therapy session. The center had expanded, adding specialized rehabilitation wings and training facilities. Luna's law had not only changed legislation but had revolutionized how rescue centers approached trauma recovery. Elizabeth Montgomery's foundation had grown beyond their wildest expectations. Working closely with law enforcement, they had established a nationwide network for tracking and protecting show dogs. The foundation's rehabilitation program, based on Luna and Scout's methods, had been adopted by centers across 3 countries. But the most profound changes were the quiet ones, the daily miracles that happened in the center's recovery rooms. Luna had an uncanny ability to identify which animals needed help most urgently, while Scout's playful energy could coax even the most traumatized dogs out of their shells. "They're not just therapy dogs," Sarah explained to a group of visiting veterinarians. "They're teachers. Every case they work with shows us something new about healing." The center had documented hundreds of successful rehabilitations, each one adding to their understanding of animal trauma recovery. Luna and Scout's methods had proven especially effective with dogs rescued from fighting rings and puppy mills, showing that even the most severe cases could find their way back to trust. Mike Thompson, the security guard whose instincts had started it all, had become a regular volunteer at the center. "Sometimes the best things in life come from trusting your gut," he said, watching Luna work with a group of rescued puppies. "That rainy night changed everything, not just for these dogs, but for how we think about animal welfare." The impact rippled outward. Show dog organizations had implemented strict new security measures. Breeding regulations were tightened. Registration systems were modernized to prevent exploitation. But perhaps most importantly, public awareness had shifted. People understood now that pedigree papers and champion bloodlines weren't guarantees of ethical treatment. Luna and Scout's story had reached millions, inspiring changes in animal welfare laws across the globe. Their journey from desperate survival to healing and purpose had touched something deep in people's hearts, reminding them of the extraordinary bonds between animals and humans. As the sun set on another successful day at the center, Dr. Martinez found Luna and Scout in their favorite spot by the window. Scout was gently playing with a recently rescued puppy, while Luna watched with that characteristic mix of intelligence and compassion that had become her trademark. "You know," Dr. Martinez said to Sarah, who was documenting the scene, "when you first brought them in that night, I thought we were saving them. But really, they were showing us how to save ourselves." The legacy of Luna and Scout continued to grow. Each new day brought opportunities to heal, to teach, to transform trauma into triumph. Their story had become more than just a tale of survival. It was a blueprint for hope, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we can find purpose and meaning. And so, as another group of rescued animals found their way to healing under Luna and Scout's gentle guidance, their miracle lived on not just in the laws that bore their name, or the methods they had inspired, but in every heart they helped piece back together, one gentle touch at a time. If you were moved by Luna and Scout's incredible journey from darkness to light, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community of animal lovers making a difference. Share this video if you believe in the power of second chances, and let us know in the comments what touched you most about their story.